In news that's coming in, yet another move by India to checkmate Beijing. Vietnam has confirmed it has taken delivery of a batch of short-range BrahMos missiles from India. Well, that's news that's coming in of how now India is actually an exporter of arms as well. And in latest inputs that we are getting right now, Vietnam has confirmed the purchase of BrahMos missiles from India. This could be seen as a move by India to checkmate Beijing. Vietnam buying arms and ammunitions from India certainly comes as good news where Indian manufacturing of arms is also concerned. Let's get you further perspective on this development, where Vietnam has confirmed it has taken delivery of a batch of short-range BrahMos missiles from India. Joining me at the moment, my colleague Ashish Singh with the latest. Ashish, put this into perspective, and how does India now checkmate Beijing with this Vietnam buying a batch of short-range BrahMos missiles from us?
Well, Akshay, it's a massive move by the Indian government. Remember, there has been a standoff between Vietnam and China as well when it comes to maritime domain like South China Sea. And the Indian government's decision to provide BrahMos missile, it's certainly going to irritate China a lot. Vietnam has been in talks with the Indian government, specifically Ministry of Defense, to acquire a batch of BrahMos missiles. Remember, BrahMos missiles are the world's one of the best when it comes to this particular category of the fastest anti-ship cruise missile. This is the fastest anti-ship cruise missile which has been developed by the Russians and the DRDO, the Defense Research and Development Organization of India. And we have just received a confirmation from the Vietnamese government. I would request my cameraman to just zoom in and show you. This is the official press release by the Vietnamese Minister of Foreign Affairs. And the last question, it clearly talks about how the Indian government has sent the first batch of BrahMos missiles, and it has been received by the Vietnamese Navy. In addition to that, I am told that Vietnam has also ordered 3 to 4 different kilo-class submarines from Russia. That was basically going to be one of the biggest platforms for Vietnam to counter China in South China Sea with the help of these BrahMos missiles and the submarines. So a massive step by the Indian government to counter China by providing the military equipments, missiles and the other required stuff to the countries which are basically situated next to China, and will help Indian government also military, army, navy to counter China both on land and in maritime domain. So this certainly is a massive step. Remember, Akshay, the Indian government generally does not indulge in as far as the arms deals. Remember, Akshay, the Indian government generally does not indulge in as far as the arms deals are concerned. We refrain from selling arms to any of the countries, but this is certainly one of the major stand in the strategic policy of India. This part was initiated by the Modi government. It was not something that was discussed in the earlier governments. Yes, Vietnam has been trying to acquire BrahMos missiles. It has been developed by Russia and the DRDO. But under this government, the Vietnamese government has managed to receive the first batch of BrahMos missiles.
Ashish, request you to stay with us. Let me bring in Professor Madhav Nalapat of the Sunday Guardian, also joining us right now. Professor Madhav Nalapat, Vietnam confirming buying BrahMos missiles from India. Of course, this will be an irritant for China, looking at the kind of relations Vietnam and China also shares. Your perspective on this development?
Well, I'd like to say that, I don't believe this is related in any way to any other country. And I warmly welcome this decision, because the fact is that in India, we have not made use of the defense sector to ensure that it pays its own way. The fact is that whether it's the United States, whether it is the UK, whether it is China itself, the defense sector is getting billions and billions and tens of billions of dollars every year by this kind of sale. Vietnam is a friendly country. It's a communist country like China, so it can't be said that this is China specific at all. It is merely a fact that India is a perfect right to sell missiles to friendly countries. And in my opinion, we should also go in for selling atomic reactors. both the nuclear and the atomic field are fields where we can make at least $10 billion a year in profit.
Okay.
Another $10 billion through space. So we'll have $30 billion extra to pay for advanced technology.
Okay.
We are falling behind China entirely because we lack the funds to go ahead with development of these technologies.
All right.
This is an extremely welcome move by Narendra Modi government, and I'm really delighted by it.
All right, Professor Madan Alappa, thank you very much for speaking with us. Commodore G.J. Singh also joining us over the phone line. Commodore G.J. Singh, your first thoughts on this big news that's coming in, where Vietnam has confirmed the purchase of first batch of BrahMos missiles from India. Of course, it's a big step where defense ties between two nations is concerned, but do you also believe this could be sending out a strong message to our neighbor?
Yes, I must say this is a very positive, step, very positive thing that has happened in this regard, because it places India now as a regional power, because there are countries now in the world who are, purchasing and who are buying the Indian manufactured defense equipment,
yes,
and armament and missiles, and this is something which is, a feather in the cap as far as India is concerned. And I must say that this sends a signal not only to our neighbors, but I think it sends a signal all over the world,
Okay.
that here is a force to reckon with now, that we are not just idling. We are also
Okay.
a country to reckon with. It is not that everybody can take us for granted like
All right.
China. It is in fact sending a very strong message to China now.
All right.
That he has to watch out, because it is not only Vietnam who is engaged in South China,
Yes.
that struggle for freedom of navigation like America and Japan is. It is something which is also sending a message to China as to that
Right.
this Dokla, that problem which he has created,
Right.
is something which is absolutely unwarranted, and we
All right.
give them a bloody nose in the even
Okay.
saying,
Commodore G.J. Singh, appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much for your comments. Lieutenant General Raj Katyan also joining us over the phone line. Sir, good afternoon. Your first thoughts on this big development that's coming in. Vietnam confirming purchase of BrahMos missiles from India. The first batch has already been delivered.
Yeah, almost 3 years ago when the present government came in power, they had announced the Look East policy.
That's right.
And this is a pursuit of the same policy. Most of these smaller countries around South China Sea, that includes Japan, which is further East China Sea, but they are also equally affected. Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, all these countries are harassed by China. China doesn't listen to them. It's a big bully.
Right.
India is the only country that can stand in front of China, and that is one of the reasons why there is a tension between the two. China
Okay.
wants a unrivaled supremacy in the region, and India perhaps cannot accept it. So this policy of befriending or exporting weapons to these peripheral countries is a very good idea. All of them will be happy to join up with India and to checkmate China's bullying tactics. So I think it's a very good step that India has taken.
All right. Appreciate you joining us, sir. Thanks very much for your first comments. Ashish, let me come back to you and also talk about the other development that has come in. Two big developments that have come in favor of India today. And of course, both of them sending out a strong message to our neighbor. A, we have seen how Japan has supported India's stand at Doklam. B, we've seen Vietnam confirming the BrahMos missiles being bought from India. Both of them directly sending out a message to China. Ashish.
Well, that's right. Now, since the Japanese government has come in support of Indian government on Doklam standoff, it certainly is a big booster. It's going to bolster India's position and stand as far as Doklam is concerned. See, if many countries start coming together at the international forum or diplomatically, it is going to help Indian government counter China, corner China. We have already received support from Japan. The Vietnam's BrahMos missile is something, deal with the Indian government, is something that's going to corner China very, very badly. And all these developments are taking place at a time when just 2 weeks away from now, the BRICS summit is going to take place in Xiamen province of China, where Prime Minister Modi would be one of the topmost leaders who would be visiting and interacting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, Japan's stand has come at a time when the Indian government has been keeping very quiet, has been refraining from reacting to every development or any action from the Chinese side, be it military domain, media domain, or diplomatic domain. But Japan's open stand in favor of India against China has strengthened India's position against China. Vietnam's BrahMos missiles deal has once again strengthened the Vietnam-India ties. Remember, India has sold a couple of ships to Vietnam Navy. Now, Vietnam has ordered different submarines from Russia, specifically a Kilo-class submarine. That's what I've been informed. Once the neighboring country of China starts building up as far as the defense aspect is concerned, it's going to reduce India's burden to counter China in maritime domain or in land. And this is one step that's going to certainly corner China, at least in the South China Sea. These are not the steps that are going to help India acquire and get immediate results of Doklam standoff. But at the international forum, when you have China's neighbors as well being cornered by the Chinese neighbors, it's going to help Indian government both in maritime and in on land domain. Akshay?
Okay, we'll leave it at that, Ashish. Thanks very much for bringing us those updates and putting it all into perspective.